While here, you may even have the opportunity to cash in a token to choose a book from our book vending machine in the hall.
We appreciate your continued focus in our academic achievement, as well as our social, emotional, behavioral health, and are looking forward to hearing your news on additional investments to support our efforts.
At this time, please join us in welcoming Governor Carney to the podium.
All right, Emily, where are you? Following students like that? Are you kidding me? Dr. Alois, it's great to see you again, obviously continuing to do great things for education here in this district, as you did as part of our team at the Department of Education. You know, as I walked in the room, and I was greeted at the front door by our safety and security team. They told me that they're in charge, they're our bouncers today, so to speak, and proudly wearing their sashes and badges. I had a sense that this was going to be something different, and it certainly is something that makes what those of us who are elected officials, and I want to thank all the elected officials standing behind me for being here and for their leadership in the House and the Senate. We'll hear from the Senate and the House chairs of the Education Committee as well. We appreciate the partnership, and we appreciate your being here. What we do as elected officials is hard, but events like today, where we get to see the future in front of us, make it all worthwhile. As I was looking over my notes, coming here, I thought there was only one Freeman Williams, and he was a guy who was a star basketball player for Christiana High School back in the day, before maybe before you were born, and took their team to the state championship game in 1970. Came up a little short to a high school that doesn't exist anymore, Delaware High School, won the back-to-back state championships. And that Freeman Williams is right there.
The older version.
The older version of this Freeman Williams, who is the principal here at Stokes Elementary. You are a lucky man to have this fella. Pretty good ball player too, there you go. The apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. Freeman, it's good to see you with us in good health. On Thursday, as you all know, I have the opportunity to give my annual State of the State address, and I hope that obviously the legislators will be there and the rest of you will tune in as well. The announcement today, though, we thought, with respect to our education priorities, can't wait until Thursday. Last year at the Delaware Teacher of the Year ceremony, I said something I think that bears repeating today. And that is that some jobs are really hard, some jobs are really important, and teaching is both really hard and really important. And I know we have a number of teachers in the room. They were quizzing me about what the announcement was all about today. And I said to them, I hope you can support it with us. It's been especially challenging, as we all know, during the last 2.5, 3, feels like 10 years of COVID-19 pandemic. And so I'd like all of us to take a minute to thank our educators for what they've done inside and out of the classroom. It's really impossible to overstate it, but it's certainly been a tough time to be a teacher anywhere in our country, actually around the world. At the same time, we have a significant number of teacher vacancies in schools across the states for all kinds of different reasons. And we know that there's a significant teacher shortage across the nation for some of the same reasons. And so what that's created is a competition for teachers that are available, a competition that's incredibly intense. And states around us have been raising their salaries to be more competitive and to outcompete the state of Delaware. We will not be outcompeted by states around us. I'm sure there are English teachers in the room that tell me that's not the right way to say that. And so here in Delaware, we established, along with the DSEA's encouragement, the Public Education Compensation Commission, which is ably chaired by our Secretary of Education, Dr. Holodick, and you'll hear from him in a minute. The challenge is their report isn't due until November. And so we've got a lot of work to do before November, so we need to do something before that for the issue of teacher salaries. And so in light of that, my budget that I'll present next week will contain significant salary increases for the teachers in our state. That will help us stay competitive with states around us and fill so many of the vacancies that we have. It will ensure that the best talent comes here and stays here to help the children succeed. At the end of the day, that's what this is all about. At the same time, our teachers need the resources necessary to get their students, all of their students, no matter where they come from, to get them where they need to be. Reading at grade level in third grade, doing math proficiently by middle school, and graduating high school ready to go to college or into a career. And we talk about that and try to keep a focus on that as much as we can. Children can't reach those goals unless they have the necessary tools. And that's why I'll also be announcing that my budget will include an increase in opportunity funding to over $50 million from where it is today. And that's a big thing. For those of you who don't know what opportunity funding is, it provides what is called weighted student funding, extra funding for children from disadvantaged backgrounds to provide classroom support for these learners in our schools. And we know that they need the extra help. Across the state, this funding has meant different things for every different school, and I expect here as well. It's meant new counselors in schools, and our majority leader in the House has championed that effort, and we appreciate our partnership there. Mental health supporters, reading and math specialists, whatever those individual schools and districts determine they need. Last year I did a little tour, went to a school in each of our 3 counties that have benefited from opportunity funding to see what they were doing. At my visit to Lake Forest South Elementary, not too far from here, I met with a classroom of students who actually told me that math was their favorite subject. I don't hear that often. I hear it increasingly here. It came to a surprise for me. Somebody that was formerly the Secretary of Finance, that was kind of pretty cool. The students told me, though, that math was fun because their teacher made it fun. Because their teacher made it fun. And that's what good teachers do. They make learning fun. They challenge their teachers to learn. They find ways to get their students where they need to be. And so I look forward to seeing what our teachers do with this next increment of opportunity funding. Finally, we'll be investing additional funds in the Wilmington Learning Collaborative. And I know we have, where's Don? There he is. Don, who's Don Patton, who's one of the members of the WLC board. They just had their first meeting last week. The WLC is designated to support the children in the city of Wilmington, our state's largest city. And it will empower educators to be more involved in the decision making and provide the basis for these students to be successful. As many of you know, or maybe probably don't know, I was raised by 2 educators. My dad actually and mom moved here to Delaware in the 1950s so that my father could take a job at Mount Pleasant Middle School. Somebody else went to that school. I don't think your paths crossed. And I know from my experience with my parents the difference a good teacher can make in the life of a son and daughter. They had 9 of them, not sons, five daughters and 4 sons. I also know a difference a good teacher can make in the life of a student. And that's why we believe, as everyone I think in this room does, that teachers are central to whether we're going to improve education here in our state. We want to attract the best teachers to Delaware schools and keep them here. And the competition for those teachers is intense, as we know. I'm confident that with the support of like teachers in the back of the room who we talked to earlier, that we can get this done working together. One of the things that I believe we do best here in Delaware is work together when we have a common goal. So I want to thank the leaders that are here, chairs of the House and Senate Education Committee, the other legislators who've joined us as well, for being here and for your support in our budget in this next initiative. And now I'd like to turn things over to Secretary Holodick. He has been one of those teachers in our state. He's been principal at 2 ends of the state, and then formerly the superintendent in Brandywine School District, and now our Secretary of Education and the chair of the Educator Compensation Commission, Dr. Mark Holodick.
So I suspect that there are some in the audience who might not be overly familiar with what the Education Compensation Committee is. So just to articulate, the acronym is actually PEC. Not surprising that we have an acronym in education. We have an acronym for everything, right, in education. So it's the Public Education Compensation Committee, and the sponsor of that bill, Senator Townsend, is here today, along with a number of other co-sponsors, legislators who worked very closely with, a number of organizations and people to pull this committee work together. And that work has been going on now for a little more than 5 months. And in looking at the data that we've received in preparation for meetings, some data that looks at national trends, in terms of, the governor had mentioned, the number of vacancies in school, the challenges our schools across the country and districts are facing with filling those vacancies, losing a number of teachers, some of which are leaving the career much earlier than we can afford. Lots of challenges nationally, but those same challenges exist here in Delaware. We know that, again, both based on the data that we're looking at, as well as the conversations that we're having with superintendents. So Matt Burrows, who was the chief of the chiefs this year in Appoquinimink, he and I have talked about, he's here today, he and I have talked about this ad nauseum, the challenges with recruiting and retaining really strong teachers in our buildings, right? We've talked with HR directors. We've talked with DSEA, who is represented here today. We've talked directly with teachers, HR directors and beyond, right? And they are all telling us the exact same thing, which is we need to be really thoughtful and incredibly creative. And they've pushed us, both directly and indirectly, on this committee to really think thoroughly and thoughtfully about the recommendation that we're charged to make to the governor in November of 2023. But in all of those conversations that are happening, including directly with the governor, one thing has become crystal clear, and that is we can't afford to wait until November. So I applaud the governor and his team for putting together what is going to be a rather robust and very forward-thinking plan to address the issue of filling vacancies, being ahead of the game in regard to the season of recruitment this upcoming late winter, early spring, to address this issue in an effective way. So the governor will be announcing in his State of the State and in his budget request, I don't know how specific he'll be in the State of the State, but I know in his budget request it'll be the following. A 3% increase across the board for all educators and for all teachers in our buildings. Those educators who are working directly with kids and families, an additional 6%, to total a 9% increase. The governor had mentioned surrounding states and some policy that they have passed recently and how important it is for us. I mean, this language is actually included in that legislation, in the bill that's pushing the PEC group, and that is we need to be regionally competitive. We have work to do. The data that I referenced earlier, it tells us we have work to do in that area, not just with teachers, but with other employee groups who, by the way, we are looking at right now and will be making recommendations for come November. With that said, these increases help us become immediately competitive right now, and again, help our schools not only recruit, but also retain. Because I can't help but think this signals to educators that they are incredibly valued here in Delaware, and that this administration, working with the General Assembly, wants to do something to positively impact the challenges we're facing this year. So I thank the governor and his team and very much look forward to the work ahead with the PEC committee. And I'm going to turn it over next to one of the PEC committee members, and that's the chair of the House Education Committee, Representative Williams.
Well, that's exciting. And thank you, teachers, for everything you do each and every day. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Wow, I feel like I'm a teacher. I would like to thank Governor Carney for making educator compensation a priority this year. As a former Red Clay School Board member and a member of the House Education Committee since being elected to office, I have seen how we have talked about the need for increased education compensation countless times. If we want to recruit and retain quality educators, we need to provide them with a respectable salary at the beginning of their career. We must also continue to support them throughout every step of their profession, which is why I've led and worked with my colleagues on legislation like Grow Your Own, year-long teacher residency programs, and increased funding for special education students. I have heard from so many and seen firsthand how these programs and funding impact our students and educators, keeping them in the state. I know how committed our educators are, and I would like to thank them for all they do each and every day for our students. Yes. This is the most important thing, I think. Educating our children is one of the most important jobs one could ever hold. And we should pay educators a salary showing that we believe it is the most important job. I look forward to the continued work on the Public Education Compensation Committee. Thank you again, Governor Carney, and to my colleagues for your continued commitment and investment in public education. Thank you.
And the next speaker will be the chair of the Senate Education Committee, Senator Sturgeon.
Well, with that announcement, I'm thinking about going out of retirement from teaching back into teaching. Now I can make some good money. I don't know if any of you watched any football this weekend, But let me tell you, with this proposal, we are moving the ball down the field. Between today's announcement and with the Public Education Compensation Committee, what we will recommend at the end of this year, we will finally be in a place here in Delaware where our teachers are paid what they deserve. No one becomes a teacher to make a lot of money. You become a teacher to make a difference. But your ability to make that difference in the lives of your students is seriously impaired when your school is short-staffed, creating ballooning class sizes, impossible caseloads, diminished wraparound supports. Today, we begin to right this ship. And I am so grateful to Governor Carney and his team for recognizing that paying teachers a competitive salary is a critical part of the solution. We know that the single most important factor outside the home of a child's academic success is the classroom teacher. We know classroom teachers are content experts, skilled in delivering instruction in an engaging and comprehensible manner, breaking down complex concepts into smaller parts and doing so with patience, encouragement, and care. We know classroom teachers nurture their students' innate love of learning by sparking their curiosities, while at the same time nurturing students' hearts, breaking down defensive walls, and building up trust. And often, teachers are helping students meet basic physical needs as well. Teaching is at once the most demanding and rewarding of callings, and a child's interactions with their teachers can shape them for the rest of their lives. And so it is only fitting that we lift up our education workforce with salaries and benefits that reflect how greatly we value you. But this is only the beginning. We know that pay matters, but working conditions matter too. Adequate daily duty-free planning time, appropriate class sizes to be able to meet each student where they are socially, emotionally, and academically, appropriate caseloads for special ed teachers, natural proportions in inclusion classes. These are all things we need to do to continue moving the ball down the field. Getting us to our ultimate goal, and that is an education system that works for all students because teachers are supported, are paid, are given time during the day to take care of all their extra responsibilities like calling parents and grading papers and planning lessons, and where teachers know that they are making a difference because their working conditions and their students' learning conditions, which are one and the same, are nothing short of excellent. Thank you. And now let me introduce DSEA President Stephanie Ingram.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I cannot tell you how happy I am to be here. First and foremost, I would like to thank Governor Carney for taking the first of many meaningful steps toward elevating educator pay to a respectful and professional level. Thank you very much, Governor. The educators of Delaware, thank you as well. For decades, our public school educators have worked under difficult circumstances to meet their students' needs with far too few resources and too little planning time. At the same time, educators had been vastly undercompensated as a profession compared to other professions with comparable education and training requirements. Similarly, the wages and benefits for many education support professionals, our ESPs, can no longer compete with jobs outside of education. The educator shortage crisis is real and is the result of numerous factors not controlled by educators. This important introductory commitment to increasing educator pay is one of the many strategies needed to address our situation that we have been asking for. So thank you again for recognizing the issue. I am honored to be here today representing Delaware's educators, and I am incredibly appreciative that the governor is taking these steps forward and recognizing the importance of making our Delaware educator compensation system more competitive. This is the first of many steps that will need to be taken in elevating educator pay, and we stand ready to continue to work with the governor and all of our legislators to achieve respectful and professional salaries for all educational employees. not only our classroom educators and specialists who work diligently to teach and reach our students and help them excel, but for the transportation workers who safely bring the students to and from school campuses, for the nutrition service workers who make delicious meals served at our schools, for the secretaries who keep the schools running efficiently in the front offices and behind the scenes, for the custodians who keep the schools safely maintained, and for the paraprofessionals who provide service and supports for our students to help them reach their goals and aspirations in and out of the classroom. There is much more work to be done to make and to keep our educator salaries competitive. We continue to be in those conversations to determine our next steps, and I know that together, we here in Delaware can make it happen. I always say, and you heard Senator Sturgeon say too, that our teachers' working conditions are our students' learning conditions. And if we continue to act like the lack of educator compensation isn't directly adversely affecting our classroom and students, then we are not being honest with ourselves. This increased support and sustained attention to concerns like this and our continued effort to raise educator pay to a respectful level, we can continue to implement effective solutions against the educator shortage by recruiting and retaining, more importantly, retaining quality educators in Delaware. On behalf of those educators, thank you again to all involved for taking this much needed and meaningful initial step in educator compensation. And thank you. At this time, I'd like to turn it back over to Governor Carney.
I hope the Eagles move the ball down the field like we're trying to move the ball down the field as well. So to guys and gals on the Safety and Security Committee, good job. Everybody's intact here, no problems. We appreciate you being here. To our teachers, thank you for the work that you do every day. As you heard from all the speakers, what you do is so incredibly important to the education of our children in our state. And I want to thank all the folks behind me, legislators in particular, legislative leaders, committee leaders, new leaders in the House and the Senate. Dr. Lois, thank you to you and the other, Freeman Williams, who's the principal of this school. I'm never going to be able to get over that, Free. I don't know how I can. And last but not least, to all the students here at Stokes and across the state. This is a meaningful and important move by all of us, and we look forward to getting it done and with all the issues that face the legislature this year. Thanks all of you for coming.